September 24th. Israel just announced something they've never done in thousands of years of history. They're going to live stream 100 priests blowing ancient trumpets all across Jerusalem, and they want the entire world to watch. Now here's the thing. They've done this ceremony every single year for centuries, but never once have they broadcasted it globally. Never once have they made it a spectacle. So why now? Why 2025? And here's what's really strange. This announcement came right after a blood moon appeared in the sky, right before a solar eclipse that's going to turn day into darkness, and exactly 2 weeks after they performed a ritual that hasn't been done in 2,000 years. The elites know something. The religious leaders are preparing for something. And if you look at what's written in ancient prophecies, all of these events happening at the same time point to one specific moment. But before we get to that, so let me break down what's actually happening here. Israel's government officially announced that on September 24th, during what they call Rosh Hashanah, the Feast of Trumpets, they're going to have 100 priests stand across Jerusalem and blow these ancient ram's horns called shofars. And the entire event is being live streamed on national television, broadcast to every country on earth. Now you might be thinking, okay, so what? It's a religious ceremony. But here's what you need to understand. They do this every single year. This feast happens annually. Jews gather, they blow the trumpets, they pray for repentance, they call out to God. It's been happening for thousands of years. So why, after all this time, are they suddenly making it a global event? Why do they want every person with an internet connection to witness this specific ceremony in 2025?
Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more awe-inspiring stories of faith, survival, and miracles.
I started digging into this, and nobody has a clear answer. The Israeli government didn't give a reason. Religious leaders aren't explaining why this year is different. It's just happening. And when governments do things without explanation, especially things involving ancient prophecies and sacred rituals, that's when you need to pay attention. Because these shofar blasts aren't just ceremonial noise. In Jewish tradition, these trumpets represent a call to God, a cry for the Messiah to come. They're basically saying, we're ready, we're repenting, come and save us. And the fact that they want the whole world watching this year tells me they're expecting something to happen. But that's just the surface level, because while Israel's preparing this massive trumpet ceremony, something else has been happening in the sky that hasn't occurred in this combination for decades. And when you see what's lining up, let me tell you about what I witnessed just a few days ago. I went outside around midnight, looked up at the sky, and the moon was completely red. I'm not talking about a slight tint or an orange glow. This thing was blood red, deep crimson, and my phone camera couldn't even capture how intense it really looked with the naked eye. The footage I got doesn't do it justice at all. But this wasn't just happening where I lived. 80% of the entire planet could see this blood moon. That's billions of people looking up at the same sky, watching the same phenomenon. Now, blood moons aren't super rare by themselves, but here's where it gets interesting. That blood moon came with a lunar eclipse, both events happening together, visible to most of the world. And then astronomers came out and announced something else. On September 21st, just 3 days before Israel's trumpet ceremony, there's going to be a full-scale solar eclipse. And this isn't just any eclipse. They're saying it's going to cause a blackout across 80% of Earth, meaning the sun gets blocked out, day turns to darkness, and again, most of the planet witnesses it. So think about this timeline. We just had a blood moon and lunar eclipse that 80% of humanity saw. In a few days, we're going to have a solar eclipse that blacks out the sky for 80% of the planet. And right after that, on September 24th, Israel broadcasts their trumpet ceremony to the world. Now, if you've read any biblical prophecy, you know these exact signs are mentioned. The moon turning to blood, the sun going dark. These aren't coincidences or random astronomical events that people are trying to force into prophecies. These are specific signs that ancient texts said would appear together, all at once, right before something massive happens. The book of Joel talks about this. The book of Revelation describes it. When the moon turns red and the sun turns black, that's supposed to signal that we're entering the final countdown. And it's all happening right now, in the same month, leading up to this ceremony that Israel's never publicized before. But wait, because the celestial signs are just one piece of this puzzle. There's something else Israel did recently that barely made the news, and it involves a ritual that hasn't been performed in 2,000 years. Okay, so here's where things get really strange. A few months ago, Israel performed what they called a practice session for sacrificing a red heifer. Now, if you don't know what that means, let me explain. In ancient Jewish law, there's this requirement that before they can build the third temple in Jerusalem, they need to sacrifice a pure red heifer and use its ashes to cleanse all the tools and materials they're going to use for construction. This isn't something they made up recently. This goes back thousands of years to the time of Moses. The problem is, finding a completely red heifer, no white hairs, no blemishes, nothing, is incredibly rare. Like, it's only happened 9 times in all of recorded history. And Israel's been raising these red heifers specifically for this purpose. They've been preparing for years. Then suddenly, they announced they're doing a practice sacrifice. They went through the entire ceremony, killed the heifer, burned it, collected the ashes, everything. But they said it was just practice, just a rehearsal. Now, most people heard that and moved on. But think about it for a second. Why would you need a practice, an ancient ritual that's been documented for thousands of years? The instructions are clear. The process is written down. You don't need a practice run. So a lot of people believe that wasn't practice at all. That was the real deal. And they're just calling it practice to avoid causing international panic.
Because here's the situation. The spot where the third temple is supposed to be built, that exact location in Jerusalem, there's currently a mosque sitting on it. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the most sacred sites in Islam. Muslims believe this is where their prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. So if Israel tries to tear down that mosque to build their temple, that's going to trigger a massive conflict. We're talking potential World War level consequences. Every Muslim nation would respond. So Israel can't just announce they're ready to build the temple. They can't publicly say they've completed the red heifer sacrifice. Because the moment they do, everyone knows what's coming next. But here's the thing. When they found the Dead Sea Scrolls back in 1947, hidden in caves near Jerusalem, they didn't just find ancient Bible texts. They found something else in those caves, something that changes this entire situation. They found containers, old vessels sealed for centuries, and inside those containers were ashes. The ashes of 9 red heifers that had been sacrificed throughout history. So Israel already had 9 of the 10 ashes they needed. They were only missing 1. And if that practice sacrifice was actually real. So let's talk about what these Dead Sea Scrolls actually revealed. In 1947, a shepherd was looking for a lost goat in caves near the Dead Sea, and he stumbled onto one of the most important archaeological discoveries in history. Inside these caves were ancient jars containing scrolls, texts that hadn't been seen in almost 2,000 years, parts of the Bible that had been missing, prophecies that had been lost. And when scholars started translating these scrolls, they found detailed descriptions of the Messiah, how he would be crucified, how his own people would reject him, how he would take on the sins of the world. Everything that happened to Jesus was written in these scrolls, texts that were hidden away before Jesus was even born. Now, a lot of Jewish people who read these scrolls actually converted to Christianity after seeing the prophecies, because it was right there in their own ancient texts, describing Jesus perfectly. But not everyone accepted it. Many religious leaders rejected the Dead Sea Scrolls, said they weren't legitimate, said they weren't part of the original scriptures, because accepting them would mean accepting that they missed their Messiah 2,000 years ago. But here's what most people don't know about that discovery. In those same caves, alongside the scrolls, archaeologists found sealed containers, clay vessels that had been sitting there for centuries, and when they opened them, they found ashes. Not just any ashes, the purified remains of red heifers that had been sacrificed in ancient times. 9 containers total, 9 red heifer sacrifices from the time of Moses up through the Second Temple period. These ashes were preserved, hidden away, waiting. According to the ritual, you need 10 red heifer sacrifices total before you can build the third temple. 9 were already done. The ashes were already collected and preserved by ancient priests who knew what was coming. They knew future generations would need these ashes, so they saved them. And now Israel has those 9 containers. They've had them since 1947, which means for the last 77 years, they've only been waiting for one thing. One final red heifer, one last sacrifice to complete the requirement. And if that practice ceremony wasn't actually practice, then right now, as we're speaking, Israel has everything they need to start building the third temple. Every tool can be cleansed, every requirement can be met. The only question is when they're going to do it. But there's a specific prophecy about when this temple gets built, and it connects directly to what Jesus said about his return. All right, so there's this verse in the Bible that everyone quotes when talking about the end times. Matthew chapter 24, verse 36. Jesus is talking to his disciples about when he's going to return, and he says, "But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, but my Father only." And most people read that and think, okay, so we can never know when Jesus is coming back. It's completely unknowable. But here's the thing. When you look at the original Hebrew phrase that Jesus used, it doesn't actually mean what the English translation says. The phrase, "no one knows the day or hour," is a Hebrew idiom. It's a specific saying that Jewish people would have immediately recognized. It refers to a particular feast day called Rosh Hashanah, which is the same thing as the Feast of Trumpets. And the reason it's called the day no one knows is because Rosh Hashanah is determined by the sighting of the new moon. You can't predict exactly when the new moon appears. You have to watch and wait for it. So the feast begins the moment someone spots the new moon, which means you don't know the exact day or hour until it happens. That's why it's called the day no one knows the day or hour of.
So when Jesus said that phrase, he wasn't saying we can never know anything about his return. He was pointing to a specific day on the Jewish calendar. He was telling them, I'm coming back on the Feast of Trumpets, but you won't know which year until you see the signs. And what are those signs? A blood moon, a lunar eclipse, a solar eclipse, the moon turning red like blood, the sun going dark. These are the signals that the specific year has arrived. Now, Christians call this event the Rapture, even though that exact word isn't in the Bible, but the concept is there. Jesus appearing in the sky, taking his followers out of the world before a period of tribulation begins. And according to the pattern, this happens on the Feast of Trumpets. It happens when the trumpets are blown, which is exactly what Israel is doing on September 24th. They're blowing 100 trumpets across Jerusalem, calling out for their Messiah. And the signs that Jesus said would appear before this day, they're all happening right now. The blood moon already appeared, the solar eclipse is coming in 3 days, and then immediately after, the Feast of Trumpets begins with this massive trumpet ceremony that's being broadcast globally for the first time ever. Now, does that mean September 24th, 2025 is definitely the day? I can't tell you that. Nobody can. But I can tell you that every single prophetic marker that was supposed to line up before this event is currently lining up. And Israel seems to know something because they're not treating this like just another annual ceremony. They're making it a worldwide spectacle. But it's not just celestial signs and ancient rituals. There are things happening on the ground right now, current events that match prophecies written thousands of years ago. So while all this is happening with Israel and the celestial signs, take a look at what's going on around the world right now. The Euphrates River, one of the most important rivers in biblical prophecy, is drying up. Water levels are at historic lows. And in the book of Revelation, it specifically says the Euphrates will dry up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. Then you've got rivers in multiple countries turning blood red, not metaphorically, literally red. China had rivers turn red. Parts of Europe had red rivers. The water is physically changing color, and scientists are giving different explanations, but none of them fully explain why it's happening in so many places at once. And then there's the weather. Desert regions that never see snow are getting blizzards. Places that should be hot are freezing. Climate patterns are going completely haywire.
Now, I'm not here to debate climate change, but what I am saying is that these aren't normal fluctuations. These are extreme events that seem to be fulfilling very specific prophecies about signs in the earth before the end times. But here's what really caught my attention. There's a prophecy that talks about an army of 200 million soldiers marching toward a place called Armageddon for the final battle. And throughout all of human history, no military force has ever had 200 million soldiers. The largest armies in World War II were in the tens of millions. So for centuries, people wondered how this prophecy could possibly be fulfilled. Where would 200 million soldiers even come from? Well, look at what just happened. President Trump imposed massive tariffs on India. India responded by strengthening ties with China and Russia. These three countries just formed a closer alliance through BRICS, and when you combine their military forces, you're looking at over 200 million soldiers. China has the world's largest military, India has the second largest, Russia has one of the most powerful, and now they're aligned together. And that alliance is in opposition to the West, specifically America and its allies in the Middle East, which includes Israel. So you've got an army of 200 million now existing for the first time in history. You've got the Euphrates drying up, which prophecy says happens right before these armies march. You've got Israel preparing to build the third temple, which can only be built right before the final conflict. And you've got celestial signs appearing in the exact pattern that ancient texts said would signal the beginning of the end. Every piece is moving into position. But there's one more thing the government is already preparing for, and it's the most disturbing part of all this. Here's something most people have never heard of: Project Bluebeam. It's a theory that's been around for decades, and it suggests that if mass disappearances ever happen, the government already has a cover story prepared. They're going to blame it on aliens. And before you dismiss this, NASA just made an announcement that seems to confirm this plan is already in motion. They announced that there's something called a three-body comet heading toward Earth, and it's supposed to be visible in the sky by November. But here's where it gets weird. Half of NASA scientists are calling it a comet. The other half are saying it might be an alien spacecraft. They're literally putting both narratives out there at the same time, contradicting themselves publicly. Why would they do that unless they're preparing people for something? The theory says that the government has holographic projection technology, similar to what you saw in Spider-Man with the villain Mysterio. He used drones and projections to create fake threats in the sky that looked completely real. The technology exists right now, and if millions of people suddenly vanish during the Rapture, the government doesn't want the remaining population to turn to God. They don't want people realizing that biblical prophecy just came true. So they'll project something in the sky, maybe stage some attacks, and tell everyone it was an alien invasion that took all those people. It sounds crazy until you realize they're already setting up the story. They're already talking about objects in the sky. They're already preparing the public to see something unusual in November, right after September 24th. And if something does happen on the Feast of Trumpets.
So let me bring this all together. Israel is live streaming a ceremony they've never shared publicly in thousands of years. They're doing it on the exact day that Jesus pointed to when he said, "No one knows the day or hour." The celestial signs are appearing in the precise order that prophecy described. The red heifer sacrifice that needs to happen before the third temple has likely already been completed. A 200 million soldier army now exists for the first time in history. Rivers are turning red, the Euphrates is drying up, and the government is preparing a cover story for mass disappearances. Every single piece is in position right now. This isn't about maybe or possibly anymore. Look, I don't know if September 24th is the day. Nobody does. But I do know that ignoring all of this would be foolish. These aren't random coincidences. These are specific, detailed prophecies being fulfilled right in front of us. And whether you believe in biblical prophecy or not, something is clearly happening. Israel knows it. The government knows it. The elites are preparing for it. So here's what you need to do right now. Share this with everyone you know. Get this information out there before it's too late. The algorithm will only push this video if people engage with it. So comment below, tell me what you think is going to happen. Because in just a few days, we're going to find out if everything I just told you is connected to something bigger than any of us ever imagined.